everybody. My name is Carrie McCarthy, licensed art therapist and licensed professional clinical counselor, and founder and CEO of Startup Art Therapy to Rewire Your Brain, where we talk about on our YouTube channel all things trauma and solutions to trauma. And we work with Native Americans specifically, but we have branched out and we are reaching broader audiences within other countries as well. So going global. And today we have a huge treat for you. We have Louis Baca from the Pueblo Indian Nation, and we're going to be interviewing and having a wonderful discussion with Louis. So I will do a little introduction. He is Native American from the Pueblo Nation in the Southwest. He is a retired executive that after half of his career in executive management with high-level companies in corporate and nonprofit sectors. And he even worked at Intel and got some awards and accolades there. And now he's the founder of Blue Cloud Foundation, bringing life coaching to Native people as well as non-Native people and spreading his incredible sage spiritual wisdom to the masses. So thank you for being here, Louis, and it's really an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
Would you like to say anything, introduce yourself, anything I missed?
I am from Santa Clara, Pueblo. There are 19 different Pueblo villages in New Mexico. I'm from Santa Clara, or in our language, Pueblo Indian. As Carrie mentioned, I am retired, but I spent a good portion, at least half, if not more, in positions of upper level executive management and nonprofit organizations as the executive director of the American Indian Graduate Center, executive director at sorry, the wrong title. I was the development manager at the Los Alamos National Laboratory Foundation that personally was responsible for the raising of $2 million to support that work as a nonprofit, providing educational, health, community services to the Native people of northern New Mexico and the Hispanic community also in northern New Mexico.
Wonderful. You are quite an accomplished man. And I'm just curious, how was it being in white corporate America as a Native man back when you got your start in the 70s?
It was quite an experience. All the time I was in college working on my degrees, I have a master's degree in education. I had always thought that when I get out into the world of work, I would put all my energies into working with Native people, giving back and assisting however I could. It was interesting that one of my first jobs was to go into corporate America, where the Intel Corporation had established of its plants, manufacturing plants, makers of computer chips. Now, I always remember the first day I walked into the corporate building, this huge building of nothing but row and row upon open door offices, just the cubicles. And I just thought, how out of place I felt. It's like, am I here? I looked around, and even though we were in the heart of Native people in northern New Mexico, I didn't see another Indian person, much less a another person of color, black, brown. I just thought I'm just going to turn around and get out of here. But I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't because I learned working in a large, prominently male employed, male employees in a international corporation really taught me a lot. Taught me not so much about all the technology and everything, but it helped me learn more about myself and my role. And I thought, how can I give back working here? So I started uh, working with the recruitment office to identify more Native Americans through the American Indian and Science Engineering Society, a national organization committed to educating natives in the STEM areas, science, technology, engineering, math. And eventually, after my work and commitment and my recognition within the corporation, I was instrumental to help raise $2 million, a $2 million grant from the Intel Corporation to support Native American education. We can give back no matter where we are, just a matter of staying connected with who you are as a Native person, your community, however you can, whether it's daily, if you live on the res, or if you're living in the city, going back to connect during ceremonies or other events.
Yeah, well, that really speaks to how intelligent you are, that you've climbed the ladder as the only Native American in, a science and tech world and received awards. And that's amazing, really amazing, Louis. And being the only Native in or person of color even in that organization is a huge testament to your ability to be in there. And one of the things that's interesting too, when you as a Native person go into the white world and go into corporate world, I imagine you probably faced a lot of scrutiny and judgment from your people. I think we even talked a little bit about this at one point, but the fact that you used that as a way to educate people, and you were very brave. And back in the old days, they had the scouts, and they would go and live with the white person and the white people, and sometimes they would turn on the Native people, but they also would study the enemy, right? And or the opposition. And just curious what you learned when you
Oh,
were white corporate America. Not that they were the enemy, but they were a different culture for sure.
yeah. I want to say back in the 70s when I first went to work at Intel, yes, I was one of the very, very few Native people there or people of color. Thank goodness that I would like to think that my efforts and many others like me in other corporations have worked real hard to bring in more Native people. So there are more Native American people of color and women are in those high tech positions. Just wanted to make sure that currently in 2024, we aren't thinking back into 19. So to answer your question, how did I deal within that and what I learned? What comes to mind as I explained to a friend once, I found myself thinking as if I were uh, the electrons that circle around the nucleus of the atom, meaning the nucleus of the atom of white corporate culture and the nucleus of the atom of native people across the country. I was the electron switch and would go around each of those nucleus and found that my role was to be an avenue of communication to help the two nuclei better understand each other, because as I was in the white corporate engineering world, I could bring information in to say, you know, Native people have these non Christian holidays, much like you have Thanksgiving and Christmas. We have uh, spiritual ceremonies that we need to go home for. And so if we ask for time off, it's not just because we want to get out of here and go on a holiday. We are going back to be involved in our traditional culture and ceremonies that those continued. And so I could communicate that, girl. And then when I was back in the reservation, in the Kiva, involved in those activities, I could explain that, you know, there's things out there that they don't understand about us, but we also don't understand this about them. And so, as a vehicle of communication, both of those girls, I felt that was that's the role I could play in serving.
Yeah, beautiful. Your sound keeps kind of a little bit cutting out, but I'm sure people can kind of can fill in the gaps. And hopefully my sound is okay. I don't know. We'll find out. But yeah, and just to give people a little context who might be watching this, you know, the 70s was really an interesting pivotal time because for 100 years, Native American ceremonies were illegal and did not become legalized again until I think 1976 or 1978, one of those two.
I know that's a, yeah.
And then the voting rights. You said in 1924, Native Americans gained the right to vote, but then something didn't happen, or something with the Self-Determination Act. What?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
It was in the, I believe in 1978, 76, 78, with the passage of the Indian Self-Determination and Educational Assistance Act. In a nutshell, when Native people had been vocal enough to say, we don't want the BIA to tell us how to live our lives. All coming down from Washington through the BIA to the agencies and saying, you must do this, you must do that. This is how you do that. Native people had finally had enough political power to say, no more. And so with the passage of that Determination Act, tribes were able to contract for the monies that would have normally gone to the BIA office, but contract for that money and come into tribal um, um, government so that the tribe could determine themselves how to expend that money for education, for welfare, for economic development, or whatever it might be. It was a significant time for Native people to start taking control of our own lives by controlling what the government was obligated through treaty. The federal government obligated itself to provide those services. And they did for a number of years until we said, no, just give us the money and we'll implement it on what we know is good for us. We decide.
That's right. And a lot of tribes are now what we call 638,
Right.
taking back departments, taking back their hospitals from Indian Health Services. In fact, in Rapid City, South Dakota, in the last few years, they recently did a 638 where they took back the Indian Health Service hospital
Mhm,
and called it Oyate Health, which Oyate means the people in
mhm.
level. So now they have their own tribally run hospital, which is a huge move
Excellent.
forward. So that's wonderful. And, in light of all of these traumas that have been suffered, genocide, displacement, boarding school era, all of these things that have uh, manifested or resulted as historical and intergenerational trauma throughout generations in Native American culture. Curious, every there are so many different types of traumas to different tribes. Just want to have you explain to people what are some of the things, historical events and historical factors that contribute to the trauma within the Pueblo natives and the southwestern tribes, which consist of Navajo, Hopi, Apache, um, and Pueblo, and there's a lot more I'm sure I'm missing.
It's a very good question, and thank you for asking that. And I will only speak from the Pueblo perspective, which I am a Pueblo. Um, each tribe in the US had its own experiences of trauma. I mean, with all of the armed fighting up in the Dakotas and with the Dakota nations, up until almost 1900, we're still in armed conflict. So that trauma is fairly different from the trauma in a Pueblo village. We didn't have that kind of conflict with the US government. We had that much earlier on when the Spanish conquistadors came up from Mexico into southern New Mexico and Arizona, brought with them the Catholic Church. And they would go into villages and serve the traditions going on and saying, oh, no, no, you can't do that anymore. Let's civilize you. You can't do your dances and songs. And we know that you do that here in the plaza in the center of your village. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to build a church. Boom, right in the middle of your plaza or wherever you do your ceremony. So for us, trauma was very spiritual, mental, as I'm sure it was for Plains tribes or whatever tribes that had it. So the um, religion and ceremonies, in essence, truly went underground into the kivas that built underground that we couldn't be observed anymore by the Catholic Church, who, if you didn't do what they said, they would go as far as off arms, legs, even cutting off people's hanging them because they weren't following the Catholic Church. But for all tribes, there is historic trauma in our genes, in our bodies that go way back. And they're still there with us. We still have some of those negative voices that feed into our trauma that say, oh, you don't have a good education. You're never going to amount to anything. Um, you're just part of old culture and religion. You're still trying to carry it on today in this world. So we still face that, and that's still part of our trauma. But what I'm so glad to see and learn from you in particular, but other professional colleagues of yours, you in particular working with Native people to help deal with that trauma, bring it out, to get rid of it through the therapy that you're. When that happens, as I understand it, you're healing the brain, parts of the brain that have closed down through all that trauma that doesn't enable us make good decisions about life. We revert to alcoholism, violence, suicide, all those negative things that the white people use, non-native people used to say, you see, you're not so life. I'm so glad you're doing that work. Why? I'm glad. I'm glad for our, oh, thankful for what you bring. And now, in my latter years, having been in the corporate world and that world out there, I believe that I can bring a unique service to our people, building on top you have done already and will continue to do. Meaning, when you heal people and they can think clearly, then I, as a life coach, using what are called brave thinking tools and a process and spirituality that Native people have that is still there, but kind of sometimes is not, really there. Bringing those concepts together to people that have a healed mind to be able to say, you know what? I can live the life I want to live, how I want to live it, without anybody for telling me or me ever believing I will never amount to anything. You have a dream? People that I work with, you have a dream? Let me help you get there. If that means money, family relationships, your job, let's go. Let's do it. Live a full life. And thank you for what you do to build that foundation.
Well, and thank you for founding the Blue Cloud Foundation so you can take the Native people to the next step after their brains are working optimally. That is so important. And tell everybody about Blue Cloud. That is your native name. And what is that translated to in Pueblo, in your native tongue?
My native name is Puanunhu, which literally translates in the Teva language.
Wait,
Back when I was,
can you say that again? Because there's something happening with your microphone and it like misses words. So say that whole thing again, please.
my native name is in my language, Puanunhu, Puanunhu, which translates to blue cloud, literally. In years 30 plus years ago, when I was in the corporate world, one of the things that I had the opportunity to do with the corporation paying thousands of dollars for me to be every of their employees who often be personally or professionally trained and become better who we are and what we do. I got the opportunity to go to a 3-day Tony Robbins seminar. During that seminar, I literally, based on the work he does and helps us become who we are, I literally walked on hot. I walked for maybe 10, 15 yards on hot coal and did not burn my feet. What he did was help us get our minds, our bodies, our spirit all into one very powerful place that we can just shut out anything we want to in our world, the trauma, the fear, the doubt, and say, I can do this and walk on a hot coals and get to the other end and your feet are not burned. That says you can do anything in the world that you want. I came away from that thinking, I'm so fortunate to have that. Really did transform my life. And I thought, I want their native experiences. But everyday people who can use this the most don't have two, three, $4,000 to fly to Florida like they did from to Mexico, have a hotel room in a very high class hotel, be in this room, thousands and thousands of other people listening, studying with Tony Robbins. So I thought, how can I do this? Bring this to my mind, create a foundation and name it Blue Cloud. Create this foundation that can raise millions of dollars and then provide scholarships everyday people desire who desire this transformation in their lives. Because nothing ever, me, Tony Robbins, anybody will not transform somebody by themselves. You trans your life by yourself. Get help, you get guidance. All that Tony did and all that I am doing, will do with Native people. Hey, you got a dream? Let's go. It's your dream. You're going to accomplish. If I can guarantee you that your life will change, not me personally, I can't guarantee that, but I can guarantee you that if you do the work, you transform your life. And that's what we have lost, bring back into your life.
Beautiful, Louis. And that's something that I think that Native people had, that connection and the volition to be able to live life by design rather than default. And that's kind of where most of people live these days, as Mary Morrissey puts it. We're stuck in a paradigm, and all we have to do is change the thermostat, and we are able to shift and grow. And talks about, what dream are you building, and coming from the vision, the energy of the dream that you ultimately want to see. But it's not even so much the end result of getting the dream. It's about who we become in that process, because inevitably we do change, we do shift, and we do grow. And I think Native people really lost that, because there's this super big sense of futurelessness. And my work on Native reservations and seeing the children where they're growing up in this very closed off part of the world, where a lot of children don't even have, their parents don't have cars, and you're out in the middle of nowhere without a car, and all you do is walk to school and walk home and hopefully get to eat. And it's a very small world for them, so they can't even imagine being able to become a doctor or a lawyer or a high executive at Intel. Or even go on to higher education, or beyond their school. But most of them, it's a 50% dropout rate. So it's wonderful that you can connect them, between the work that we're both doing, resolving trauma, rewiring the brain for optimal mental health, and getting that prefrontal cortex, the executive function part of the brain online, that is responsible for wisdom, compassion, empathy, planning, decision making, and understanding right from wrong. And then you take it after that, and you bring back all of the indigenous wisdom and understanding, helping people to reconnect with the power of who they really are as a Native person. So powerful, so needed.
Thank you. You stated it more beautifully than I could have ever. Yeah.
Oh, I'm recording it then.
and and I would add to that we can become whoever we want to, as I spoke earlier, without losing who we are culturally. As a matter of fact, in less than a week and a half, I'll be back in Santa Clara Pueblo, building my village, participating in hundreds of years ceremony of thanksgiving and gratitude going to be happening as it happened every year. And the oldest adults down to the youngest children are involved in either the drumming, the singing, the ceremony, or the actual dance. They're not performances, they're ceremonies to express our gratitude to the Creator, and we share it with all people that are there with us. Be a corporate executive, back to your village, be connected.
Beautiful. Your microphone's really cutting out a lot, so I'm just kind of gonna repeat a little bit about what you said. The name of your ceremony is Feast Day, right? And you have this once a year, and it's about giving back and gratitude after harvesting all of the wonderful food that you've grown, because I think Pueblos were an agrarian society historically, right?
Right. Yes.
You grew your own food, which is so beautiful, as opposed to other tribes like Lakota. They were hunter-gatherers. And so I've been to a feast day.
Oh.
And it was, I think, in Santo Domingo, Pueblo, when I lived in New Mexico, in Albuquerque, and I worked with the Indian Health Services down there for a brief stint. And it was such a beautiful ceremony. I got to come in, and there were about 200 dancers in the blazing hot sun, and the drummers were, and they were dancing and drumming all day long. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was out there watching for probably an hour, and I thought I was going to pass out. So really, they were just channeling and really concentrated in their hearts and in the prayer and transcending that physical. And because you have to, just like the sun dance, where they're dancing without food or water for 4 days and 4 nights, connected to the Sundance tree. So it's a beautiful, beautiful ceremony. And then I got to go into a stranger's house and sit at their table and eat a lot of food. and yeah, so can you tell us a little bit more about that ceremony for you? And so this is coming up in just a week or so.
Right. As I said, it's a ceremony of Thanksgiving based on the harvest. And so it's kind of like you take Thanksgiving and Christmas and roll them into one, meaning Thanksgiving, you have a big meal, you share it, friends, family. Christmas is like generally when everybody comes home, celebrate a religious event in Christianity. So we are celebrating our spiritual events at Feast Day. The gratitude is having food grow, water to grow it, harvest it, so much food. Do is turn around and express that gratitude through sharing. So just as you said, if you've never been to a feast day, you go and respect serve, but then can be invited and even walk into home in the village, and they will greet you. Hey, hello, come in. They got no clue who you are. Come on in. And the table is already full of people eating. So they when room comes available, come eat. Eat down, and the food is just there, and it keeps coming. And women who really are taking all of this, telling you, eat good, enjoy yourself, eat good. and you might go to 3, 4, 5 houses that one day. And if you don't eat good at each house, I'm like, maybe your food isn't that good, or I'm not really hungry. No, it's feast day. You eat good, no matter how many times.
You know, I told my daughter that I said, next year we're going to go to Lewis's feast day.
Right?
I didn't know anything about feast day. And she goes, Mom, that would just be so rude to walk into somebody's house and eat and they don't know you. I'm like, that's the whole point.
Not to be rude. It's uh, not the point to be rude. It's you're being very um, grateful and honorable to someone when you go to their home and they can share their bounty with you. That's the purpose of that whole one major component of that whole ceremony. Got it. We're blessed. And let's just share it. Whoever comes to the door, on in, eat good.
Beautiful. So, Louis, I met you at Mary Morrissey's 3-day live event in Dallas, Texas. And I historically am always going to Native American conferences where I'm the only white person there, and it's thousands of natives from tribes all over, tribal nations all over.
Yeah.
And so I went to this event and I said to my friend who also works with tribes, I said, we're going to be in a sea of white people. How weird is this going to be? And lo and behold, I saw you in your beautiful native attire and you're wearing a ribbon shirt. And I went, I need to meet that guy. And we became fast friends. And we got a chance to connect and have a glass of wine and talk about the startup art therapy program. And you said, oh, I happen to know my good friends, Joe Little and his wife, Charlotte Little is the New Mexico state representative. And you said, I'm going to try and get us a meeting with them so we can try to get your program up into the Department of the Interior with Deb Haaland. And Deb Haaland was one of the first Native Americans elected to, federal government office. Right. And so she's been a historical figure and doing an incredible job. And I've been wanting to create inroads with them for a long time. So we had this meeting last week, actually a week ago yesterday, and it was so great. Thank you so much for facilitating that. And I would love for you to tell everybody, how you feel it went and what's the vision of Blue Cloud Foundation teaming up with Startup Art Therapy and moving forward?
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for that. And yes, my friends, Joe Little, who is among both are native and both Pueblo Indians also. Joe is also connected with the Escalero Apache tribe. He's a well-known lawyer throughout Native America for work he's done his whole career in support of and assistance Native people across the country. Charlotte is a Pueblo Indian woman from the village Santa Ana and I believe House Pueblo, who has been 2 years ago elected to the State House of Representatives in New Mexico. So they are, in essence, as I see and observe, our company, our native couple that can bring about change. Deb Holland, who you mentioned, is also a Pueblo Indian woman from Una Pueblo, who was serving in the Senate what was chosen by the Biden administration to sit on his cabinet as the Secretary of Interior. She is the first ever Native woman to sit on the Capitol, a cabinet level like that with the president. And as the head, the Secretary of as Secretary of Interior, overseeing all of the federal government programs that serve Native people, among them being the Bureau of Indian Education, where you have been wanting to so much to get in to talk with somebody at either Deb Holland's at that level or her people just below them who implement all the programs. When we talked with Joe and Shar and they understood the work you do and the value you bring and the importance of your offer, I believe that they then said, in fact, they said, we will do what we can to help you. They know the Secretary personally at those political levels and this Indian women politics said, yes, we'll do all we can to get in and have the Secretary of Interior hear you, know you, the value you bring, the importance of Native people, and that with that happening, just as I said earlier, for Native people, point of getting rid of the trauma, uplifting it, just dealing with it. Then the exciting part is how you and I can work together. I say, okay, hand them over. We'll take them to the next level, accomplish who they really are and want.
Beautiful. Yes, that was an incredible meeting, Louis. That was just phenomenal. Another highlight of my life up there with being on the NASDAQ billboard and meeting you at Mary Morrissey.
Yeah. And I do want to be clear, spoke earlier about using the tool, brave thinking process from the Mary Morrissey training that we've both gone to, and now I'm certified as coach to go up. I'm going to work specifically with Native people, but there's a tremendous amount of non-Native people who are Sikh who themselves their lives have maybe little to no meaning in terms of culture and where they fit in, and are even somewhat dismayed with American culture and seeking some kind of superior, spiritual, is superior connection to help them also live their lives. So I am making myself available to anyone who would like to work with me and share with them those dream building brave thinking principles combined with Native spirituality is very natural. It's not religious. It doesn't have the dogma in it. It's a spiritual way of thinking that one directly contact with Creator rather than having to go through intermittent steps of a religion that dictates this. So I think that natural spirituality and the release from trauma, stress, and people's everyday lives in our society could also benefit. And there's how Native people are saying, hey, we got you covered. We got you.
Well, I think that anybody would benefit from working with you. So how can they get a hold of you? So if they want life coaching or, spiritual guidance, whether you're Native or non-Native, how can they contact you?
simply, the easiest and quickest way is through email. And I don't know if you can put this up on the screen now or later, but I'll share it.
We'll put
My
it in the links for sure, but you can go ahead and give everybody, say it.
okay.
Yeah.
So all lowercase letters, starting with the letter L, as in Louis, L, M, B, A, C, A, L, M, Baca, underscore, 1999, my account, at yahoo.com. Alan Baca, underscore, 1999, at Yahoo.
Perfect. And I hope that everybody who's listening to this goes and reaches out to Louis, and hopefully Louis and I can put on an event at some point together, and that would be lovely. But I wanted to share this incredible photo that I took of Louis on stage with Mary Morrissey in Dallas, Texas of 2024. He's got the mic, and that's Louis talking about the Blue Cloud Foundation and his dream to bring back his wisdom and brave thinking tools and Mary's work out into the native Indian country. So, and she's quite enthusiastic there, I have to say. Look at her. She's quite committed. And she even gave Louis a kiss on the lips at the end of his speech.
Yeah.
You're turning red. Oh,
Must be my Indian blood.
I guess. All right. Well, thank you, Louis, so much for being with us today. And we will put all your contact information into the chat. And thank you.
And thank you for everything that you have done, are doing, and will do for the enhancement better of Native people and all people. Wah, wah, kunta, wah.
Thank you.